I'm waiting for a plane to go overhead. Okay, this was the best place to record The Evil Dead because there is something moving in the bushes off camera, and I don't know what it is. Okay, anyways. I had to wear my Earthworm Jim Evil Dead shirt for this episode, of course. Hello, horror freaks. Horror Man Mike here. Summer has always been my favorite season, and I've noticed a lot of the films that I really enjoy take place in the summertime or have the season as a backdrop for the events that take place in the film. So, stepping away from sequels don't suck just for a bit, this year I wanted to highlight some of my favorite films that take place during my favorite time of the year. And we have reached the tail end of summer. This is the time of year where you can still roam around in a t-shirt during the day, but you might need a hoodie after dark. It's the time of year where your car needs the defogger in the morning, but full AC blast by the afternoon. Yes, this is the time of year where you wonder to yourself, do I take the air conditioning out of the bedroom window this week, or do I do it next week? But summer is not over yet. There's still sunshine and green to be had out there. However, Halloween is just around the corner. So to close out the season, you need a movie that has 1 foot firmly planted in summer and 1 foot firmly planted in autumn. One perfect transitionary film that exists and feels at home with both summer and autumn is today's film. Today we are looking at the original Cabin in the Woods Nightmare, the one, the only, The Evil Dead. This film is campy and fun, and you can count the horror tropes out as they happen. You have a dormant evil, you have an isolated cabin, you have dickhead friends taking things too far, you have recordings in Latin being read or played out loud, possession, madness, body horror. I mean, this movie is a classic for a reason. It checks off a lot of boxes, and it checks off those boxes very, very well. I cannot remember the first time I saw this movie, but I do remember my most memorable watch. And no, it was not in theaters. I did see this movie in theaters a few years ago for an anniversary re-release, but even that was not my favorite viewing. I was living in a wooden duplex home in Bridgewater, Massachusetts. Certain staircases were shared on both sides of the house, with the duplex's dividing wall splitting what is essentially a giant staircase into two halves between the two apartments. This is an important note for later. It was the end of summer, my girlfriend was out with her friends, and I was home alone by myself for the night. I had camped myself out with my video games and a DVD player in the attic of my house, which we had converted into a game / storage room. And I picked 4 films: Dawn of the Dead, original and remake, and The Evil Dead, remake and original. I spent the entire afternoon watching these films back to back, watching the remakes in the middle and keeping the originals as bookends to begin and end my marathon with. So as my movie marathon goes on, the daylight outside starts to fade. There was still a little bit of daylight by the time I popped in The Evil Dead, but by the time the characters were deep in the shit, my natural daylight was gone. I kept gaming and I kept watching, and eventually I hear the staircase start to creak as someone is walking up the stairs. I figure it's my girlfriend letting me know that she's finally home, so I turn around and I ask hey, how was your day? And the footsteps go up the stairs to the top of the landing at the beginning of my attic and stop. And there is no one there. I realized that it was my neighbors on their side of the building walking up their side of the staircase. But I very quickly turned on every goddamn light in the house until my girlfriend got home. It was a very memorable experience for me, and I think that is the ideal way to watch The Evil Dead, in a creaky wooden attic alone at dusk. That experience is why I keep watching this movie once a year when the autumn comes. If you haven't done it, I highly recommend just try it. Try it at least once. The Evil Dead endures as a great possession movie and a bloody good time. It has a higher production value than the short film Within the Woods, and is still independent enough that Sam Raimi could get away with a lot without having a studio exec saying, you can't put that in film. It is a raw, unapologetic horror experience, and I love it for that reason. That does it for me, and that does it for the Evil Dead, as well as the Summer of Horror series as a whole, at least for this year. Maybe I'll do this again next year, because there are so many great summertime horror films that I didn't even get to. This was a fun and challenging video series to do, and whether this is your first episode or you've been here for all 13 episodes, I hope you've enjoyed my thoughts. Not just my thoughts on each film as a movie, but like the anecdotes as to why these films are important to me personally. These films are adventures that I will go on again and again. Zombie, The Texas Chainsaw, 2 words, Massacre, Humanoids from the Deep, Jeepers Creepers, The Ruins, From Dusk Till Dawn, Deep Star 6, Deep Rising, Twitch of the Death Nerve, Friday the 13th, The Burning, The Final Girls, and The Evil Dead are all notable and memorable for one reason or another. If you've seen these films before, I hope I have instilled like a sense of nostalgia in you that you might want to revisit them. If you haven't seen these films before, I hope I've installed a sense of curiosity in you that you might want to check them out. But for now, I am Horrorman Mike. That is a wrap on the summer of 2025. I have more content planned for the future, so don't worry, I am not going anywhere. I'll see you soon.